the echoes below. The beam of Sarah's flashlight danced across the crumbling walls, revealing decades of decay. The abandoned subway station lay silent, a forgotten relic beneath the bustling city above. Sarah had explored countless urban ruins before, but something about this place sent a chill down her spine. Her footsteps echoed through the cavernous space as she ventured deeper into the station. The air grew thicker, filled with the musty scent of mold and stagnant water. Sarah's camera hung heavy around her neck, waiting to capture the eerie beauty of this underground world. As she rounded a corner, Sarah froze. A figure stood motionless at the far end of the platform, barely visible in the gloom. She raised her flashlight, but the beam flickered and died, plunging her into darkness. Sarah fumbled with the light, her heart racing. When it finally sputtered back to life, the figure was gone. Shaking off her unease, Sarah pressed on. She'd come too far to turn back now. The tunnel ahead beckoned, a gaping maw of blackness. Sarah hesitated for a moment before stepping off the platform and onto the tracks. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the soft crunch of the gravel beneath her feet. Sarah's mind wandered to the stories she had read about this place. Tales of accidents, suicides, and unexplained disappearances. She pushed the thoughts aside, focusing instead on capturing the perfect shot. A faint sound caught her attention. A whisper, barely audible. Sarah paused, straining to listen. There it was, again, a little louder this time. It seemed to be coming further down the tunnel. Curiosity overcame caution, and she moved toward the source. The whispers grew clearer as Sarah ventured deeper into the darkness. They seemed to be all around her now. Hundreds of hushed voices. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was urgent, pleading. Sarah's hands trembled as she raised the camera, hoping to capture something, anything on film. A sudden gust of wind extinguished her flashlight, leaving her again in darkness. Panic seized her as she fumbled with the switch, desperate to restore her vision. In that moment of blindness, something brushed against her arm. Sarah let out a strangled cry, stumbling backward. Her foot caught on something, and she fell hard onto the tracks. Pain shot through her ankle, and she scrambled to sit up. The flashlight rolled away, its beam illuminating a section of the tunnel wall. Her blood ran cold as she saw what was written there. Hundreds of tally marks etched into the concrete. She picked up her flashlight, forced herself to stand. Her ankle protested, but adrenaline dulled the pain. She needed to get out now, but As she turned to retrace her steps, she realized with growing horror that she no longer recognized her surroundings. The tunnel stretched endlessly in both directions, with no signs of the platform she had left behind. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she limped forward, desperate for any familiar landmark. And then the whispers again grew louder, more insistent, drowning out the sounds of her own labored breathing. Hours seemed to pass as Sarah wandered the labyrinth tunnels. Her flashlight beam grew weaker, and her water bottle was long since empty. Exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, but the fear of what might be lurking in the darkness kept her moving. Just as despair began to set in, Sarah spotted a glimmer of light ahead. Hope surged through her as she quickened her pace, ignoring the protests of her injured ankle. The light grew brighter, and she could make out the outline of a platform. Salvation at last. Sarah scrambled onto the platform, tears of relief streaming down her face. But as her eyes adjusted to the light, confusion set in. This wasn't the station she had entered. The architecture was older, the air mustier. Faded posters on the wall advertised products she'd never heard of, the dates stretching back nearly a century. A distant rumble caught her attention. Her heart leapt. A train was coming. She didn't care where it was going. Anywhere was better than here. The rumble grew louder, and a warm breeze stirred the stagnant air. She moved to the edge of the platform, straining to see the approaching headlight. But as the sound reached a crescendo, no train appeared. Instead, the rumble transformed into a deafening chorus of whispers. The warm breeze began. It threatened to knock Sarah off her feet. She stumbled back from the platform edge, her eyes wide with terror. The whispers coalesced into a single mournful cry that echoed through the station. "Join us." Sarah watched in horror as ghostly figures began to materialize on the platform. Men, women, children from every era, their eyes hollow and pleading. Sarah turned to run, but found her path blocked by more spectral forms. They reached for her with translucent hands, their touch like ice against her skin. She tried to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. As the ghosts closed in around her, Sarah's mind finally snapped. She laughed, a high, broken sound that echoed through the station. And in that moment of madness, she understood. This had always been her destination, from the moment she first set foot in the tunnel. Her laughter faded as the ghosts enveloped her. Her body crumbled to the ground, empty eyes staring at nothing. In the world above, life continues as always, oblivious to the nightmare lurking below. And in a forgotten tunnel, a new tally mark appears on the wall, etched by unseen hands. Days later, a young urban explorer ventured into the abandoned subway station, camera in hand. As he descended the stairs, he thought he heard a whisper, a woman's voice warning him to turn back. But curiosity drove him forward, into the echoing darkness below. Thank you for joining me. If you like this sort of stuff, give me a follow. There'll be more